Welcome to RecCast, a video podcast series about all things AI in recruitment, brought to you by RecRite.
Hi, and welcome to this episode of RecCast, the podcast series where we explore the use of AI in recruitment, looking both at the opportunities and ethical considerations of AI. I'm your host, Jussi Luhtasla, and with me today I have my co-host and colleague Miikka Tuomola. And in this episode, we'll be exploring the intersection of AI, HR, and recruitment with our guest Laura Ansaharju. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you.
Who has an impressive experience in managing and developing people and HR teams in well-known Finnish corporations such as Finnair and VR, just to name a few. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, Laura. For the beginning, we would like to ask a bit of your background. That how have you ended up to HR, and we kind of have like a live CV here that you can tell us.
How much do we have time here?
It's a podcast. There's a lot of space.
Hey, thank you for the first of this that I'm here. So great to be here and great to explore this kind of fascinating subject matter. I've been working within HR field already like over 25 years, and graduated from Otaniemi, from University of Technology. And one might say that what this kind of engineer is doing then with the HR field. But I had a minor field which was work psychology and leadership, which was actually at that time a little bit like a strange opportunity that you had there in the University of Technology. But I loved it. And I ended up then to Stora Enso, to the paper industry, and worked with some systems and processes and compensation and benefits. But then all the time more the business HR and organization development and international and global HR issues. Worked Stora Enso 10 years. Couple of years I was in China, Shanghai. And then next 10 years at Finnair, as Jussi said. And there was various different kind of HR leadership and executive roles, and also within the digital transformation and the culture design. And then after those 10 years from Finnair, I changed to VR Group, worked as a head of HR for that company. But I left the company last autumn, and then I started my own company, and working now within the people and business and technology, and as, for example, interim CHRO roles. And maybe one specific thing is that we are now exploring with Katri Harra some this kind of people and technology interlinkages. So quite many fascinating topics have been there and much to explore more.
Interesting. You have quite a long exposure to Finnish companies, especially the larger listed ones. If you think of, before we delve deeper into AI and those kind of topics, what would you say are the biggest challenges facing HR and the people functions in general, these organizations nowadays?
Well, there are always the challenges, whether that is the big or small, but maybe something that comes quite easily to my mind is that how innovative we are in the larger companies. So when comparing to startups or scale-ups, but I think in the larger companies there are the legacy, there are the processes, there are resources, and also maybe I don't say that if just these companies where I have been working. So generally speaking, is that there's ways that have been done quite a many years. So there's a lot of also to unlearn, to get also the learning for the new things. Maybe just to name one of those.
Yeah. It seems to be one of my favorite topics, that the traditional ways of doing things, that if we think of RecRite, our biggest competitor is traditional way of hiring.
Yeah.
And it might be pretty much the same with that kind of challenge, that there's so many like traditional ways of doing things that's actually the biggest objection for the innovations and stuff to be implemented. So.
Would you have some cases in mind where this kind of you've been part of a successful unlearning within an organization? Renewal of an organization, or kind of perhaps building the culture to something new?
Definitely, I think that especially at VR Group, where we had a big value journey, where we took together all the 9,000 people to create or recreate and find the values. And that was much about that we used digital platforms, but also very much about the leadership, about the culture issues, and then roles and ways of working. And then another one, which is something that is, I think that will be in my heart forever, is Finnair, where we had this kind of digital strategy and digital transformation that was really much linked, not only about the technology and robotics and automation, but really keen about how people behave, how people think, what are the ways of working, what we need to unlearn and learn. And that had a huge, I think, impact on the organization itself.
It's interesting because both of these companies are quite similar in terms of that you have a physical product, transportation, and your main sales channel is digital, and main customer service channel is digital. Having been at Finnair, I kind of know a bit about how that kind of change worked, but was it the same at VR? Did you face the similar challenges, or did you have some different things? How would you say?
They were a little bit different kind of projects. So the Finnair digital transformation took like 3-4 years, and then that was like 3-4 months first kick off what we did. And of course, the journey continues there now with the super team still in place. Yes and no, but I think that maybe the biggest the thing which was the same is that there is those kind of traditional ways of working. But in the both companies also the motivation to explore new things. And I think that is the most important thing of doing. Not only that you don't need to have the capability or the competencies. We can help you. We can support. There are many professional ones who can support it. But you need to have the motivation. You need to want to learn more. And I think that both companies have that one. But maybe, of course, at Finnair, where I used to work with that journey for many years, so I saw really well how it takes time. And when you want to have, valuable insight, you want to build a competitive edge. So I think that is something that it takes time. It takes more time. So maybe a little bit difficult to say for the VR.
So they're still on that journey in your
definitely, and Finnair too.
For sure.
So it's never-ending journey, as we know.
How about then if you think of talent acquisition? Because yes, you have the existing people and skilled people, and you need to kind of take them on a transformation journey. But then you need to hire new people as well. At least in my opinion, you guys were pretty successful in building the kind of a newer kind of an employee brand at Finnair. Can you talk a bit about that? How did you go about that? Because of course you need to be able to do that digital transformation, you also need new talent in-house.
At the very, very first of all, we took everyone on board. So we wanted to have that there won't be, the people who were there and then the new people. So of course we wanted to nourish that experience and that knowledge which we already had in the company and Finnair in naming here. But then also taking together all the new knowledge and new experience and trying to interlink these groups very carefully and very quickly together so that there was only one team, one group with fascinating capabilities and experience and the knowledge from the different perspectives. So the value, both the experience, both the knowledge from from the internal as well as from the outcoming talents. So I think that is a really, really important one because you can't do that only with the new insights or with the old insights. And old is maybe the wrong word of it, but the experienced company information. But you need them both.
I fully agree with that. Having run the Finnair digital platform for a short while, there are not too many people in Finland who know how a airline ticket gets made, so to speak, from payment until it's in all the systems. and most of those people work within Finnair, and they have the extensive experience of tens of years of experience, and you need that. And then you might need new talent to build modern interfaces, modern front ends for customers to use. And the thing is, how can you combine these because there's kind of different work culture, different mentalities, even different compensation packages, and everything is quite different. And it's quite challenging to put these together into a well-functioning team.
It definitely is, and then understanding that you need to have that operative daily work to continue.
Yeah.
But if you're just focusing on that one, and there's always something to develop in that area. But if you just focus on that one, so where's the growth?
Yeah.
Where's the innovation? So you need to also have those kind of new thoughts, new insights, and new learnings from that one too. So very, very crucial one, and how to do it. You can't do it just only with with the digital platform, but you need to have a human touch. And I think that was something we did need to say quite well, that there was different kind of encounters that we wanted to have, whether that would be some kind of a workshop or then the Friday pizza or coffee or something, and not only within the IT, but we took the whole gang of our people together to learn from the technology side and about what the digitalization is all about.
How was it? This is kind of not that familiar for me as it is for you, for example, the Finnair ways of working, but did you have some kind of process? This can go to both of you basically, but did you have some kind of a process or a way of doing that if you need something new, let's say you need some new digital skill, you need something that you don't immediately have in the team already. How did you make decision that are you going to teach the existing ones with the new skills, or did you immediately start to hire new people to the team?
If I start?
Yeah, you start.
Both.
Yep.
So what we did was that we continuously look our competencies, and some HR professionals could say about the competence matrix. We didn't have the huge Excel sheet where we had all the competencies, where we add all the time, the new competencies we needed. But somehow we had the general oversight for that one, that what are the competencies we have at the moment, and what are the competencies what we need in the future. And how to know that? I didn't know the one, but we had a very, very good dialogue within the organization. And of course we benchmarked. We visited many other companies who were there also in the digital transformation. We weren't the only one, but it was very much co-working with a bunch of people and all the time being like awake. What are the competencies? What are the other capabilities, tools, systems, processes that we needed?
But that's a very good question, Mika, because I think that's one of the most challenging things. Like Laura mentioned, at least back then we didn't have a database of skills we have at the company. There are tools nowadays to do that, I know. And we actually, with RecRite, we worked with one or few of these. But sometimes when you have these companies that have been around for long, and Finnair has done digital stuff since 70s. So there is different eras of digitalization at the company. And it's too easy to just think about that we don't have this skill in-house, or we can't teach this skill to the people who we have in-house. Let's just bring new people, or let's just bring in a new consultant, which in some cases is exactly the right solution. But you need, at least I think, looking back, we would have needed to spend even more time on thinking that could the skill set of these people who we have in-house and who know these kind of, some of the back-end systems really well, could we upskill them towards this thing instead of hiring somebody? And I think it's really a balancing thing, because like Laura said, you need to also have the externals coming in and kind of new ways of working and everything. So it's you need to balance it, and I guess you can't never get it quite exactly right. You can go overboard and you bring in too many new people, and then you start to get this like, oh, we tried this before or not invented here mentality. And then if you just go with the people who've been there for long, then you kind of lack the innovation and courage to do new things. So it's kind of a balancing act, I would say.
And it wasn't an easy task.
No.
And it's not an easy task.
No.
So even though it's nice to remembering now those times, it was, learning all the time by myself too, and by all of us. But I think that the one key success there was that we had like a multi-talented team also inside. So there was the HR, there was the IT and technology, digitalization, and even the finance.
Yes.
And that's why we got quite a nice bunch of competencies when looking, the whole picture of how to make the change, how to make the transformation.
Yeah.
But it wasn't easy. There was many challenges.
And I think it goes back to also, and this is what I discussed also with a few other people just earlier. You need to, yes, HR can do a bit, but HR in a large organization has quite a lot of people to look after. It goes really back to kind of the team lead manager work as well. You as a team lead need to be able to know what your team members are capable of doing, what they want to develop towards to, what is the area where they want to go. And then you need to be able to communicate that to the rest of the organization so that HR and senior leadership get this visibility to make that decision. Should we hire, should we upskill? It's difficult.
I'm sure there is solutions for this, but this is a perfect use case for AI.
Yes.
To use all the data of the employees and their skills, and it can include like GitHub accounts and portfolios of designers and maybe LinkedIn profiles or whatever data you can use from the employees. And I'm sure that AI could do quite good things for that.
Yeah, and setting privacy and these things aside for a while.
Yes.
Even emails, Teams discussions, Slack discussions, all of this raw material.
Yeah. Well, need to say that Slack might be a bit too deep for this, but anyway, or maybe you can limit some parts of. Anyway, I'm sure that would be nice to see some kind of solution for that.
I think that's a really good, insight about the AI. We didn't have that one in that sense. So I can also see so many. Of course there was, but we didn't use AI. So it was more about the new technology as well as then about the new skills, mindset, tool set and skill set. But then I could see a lot of helpful use cases based on AI for that era also.
Yeah, and what we're talking about is already 4 or 5 years ago.
Exactly.
The technology wasn't that mature as it is today.
Now it has taken so huge leap, like during the last, let's say, year or two, and maybe if with just going bit more here is that, and then you probably have, or they probably have, or companies have some kind of a learning management system, which can be then again combined to the kind of AI decision process. So it would definitely help, not taking the people need away, but anyway. Yeah.
Well, Laura, what kind of use cases have you seen during your time at Finnair or with VR? What kind of use cases have you seen for AI in HR especially? It doesn't need to be recruitment, but in HR especially. Have you used any tools? Have you?
I must admit that not too much, not too many, because they have been the large companies, and as I said, that it might be a little bit slow to adapt AI, for example, the processes, as there are the processes, as there is the legacy, there are the resources, but really like simple things that you can do even with the ChatGPT, or you don't need to have even the internal one and GDPR, and these issues can be, not taking into side, but at least they are you can utilize AI in very simple things like a job descriptions. So when you start to recruitment, so the first step is to know what you want to find. And so what I have done is that, for example, job descriptions for it can be the CFO, it can be the CHRO, it can be something else. So I have gotten really nice, descriptions for the white paper, and then of course you have human oversight and you look it through.
Yeah,
but it is actually quite efficient, and then you can also look when you're looking the job ad. So you maybe have some kind of script for that one, and then you just want to enhance it a bit for the inspirational, professional one. And for example, to look that there's not any kind of this kind of gender discrimination or
biases,
this kind of biases that AI can read it through and rephrase it. And I think those are like those simple cases. But then when we go beyond the recruitment process, so what I see in at the moment, and of course in the near future also, is to of course, this application screening and then chatbots for the recruitment process as well as for the onboarding and training. And then also this candidate sourcing based on the job requirements and then the skill set and the tool sets, what we have. So there are many use cases, but what I have used are maybe the most simplest one now in the very beginning of the recruitment process at the moment.
Digging a bit deeper into, you mentioned candidate screening. How would you say, how willing would and how far are Finnish corporations ready to take an automated candidate screening at the moment?
Good question. I think that they're in the really like a first stage where you have maybe hundreds of applications. You can make that kind of overall screening. But I think that at this stage we are still at that time and that we want to have the human oversight, even there in the very, very first steps.
Yes.
I think that in the coming years you might somehow rely on already that really like the very first screening and then starting from that one with the human oversight. So I think that we are somehow in the beginning of that journey, at least in the larger companies.
Yeah.
And the ethically as well as then these legal perspectives and GDPR, so they really are things that we need to take into account and we want to take into account. But I think that kind of screening and that big data that we have, so I think that is something where we are really easily to go further. But then then afterwards, it takes quite a lot of time to screen all the hundreds of applications. So I think that AI is really helpful in that kind of sense. But then, though, the interviews, it can be the video review, but then about the analysis from that one can be used by AI or utilized by AI. And then, of course, the final decision. So it needs to be the human. It can't be the AI.
Yeah.
My humble review opinion here.
I think it is in the EU AI Act says it like one of the first things that no decisions can be made by AI. So it's
then it's about to interpretation of what is a decision. But I guess you just kind of mentioned the very common and very kind of that's what we hear from many of our customers as well, that there needs to be a human touch. You need to have a decision actually made by a human. And then the question for us technology companies is that how much do we build tools that help not make the decisions for you, but help you to, like I say, process through these large amounts of either written text or video data or whatever the format of your data is. What would you say is that and then to finalize that thought, I was actually about to say that we're also seeing quite different approaches from, let's say, non-European companies. North American or Asian companies might be more aggressive in building tools that help. And now we have the EU legislation that was actually passed yesterday that will put some boundaries on that. But what would you say are the most common fears in corporate decision making around AI? And I guess let's narrow it down to AI in HR especially.
Yeah. Maybe the first one which comes to my mind is about the fear of job loss. But I think that's not for the AI, but it's about the technology itself. I wouldn't be worried about that one. If you want to worry something, I usually don't want to, but if you want to worry something, so then I would be worried about the people who are very capable to use the AI. So they will take those jobs.
Yeah.
Not the technology, not the automation, as we are talking about the human oversight. So I think that is like maybe the one of the biggest fears I could see from the recruiters' side also, whether we need recruiters or not, whether AI will be there to helping the leaders and the supervisors and everyone to in the organizations to do the job. Well, that's then another discussion point. But I think that's, and then it's the both side when we are talking about the discrimination or the bias. So whether that is, the good thing from the AI that you, as I gave an example about that you could check that there's not this kind of gender or culture issues that would be somehow seen from the job advertisement, for example. But of course, also how you teach AI, how AI learn. So there might be also just case that it enhance the biases and discrimination.
Yeah, this is the funny part. I was about to mention it even earlier, that people are using, or companies are using AI to check that there's no bias or cultural discrimination and stuff. But then again, people are blaming AI to be biased. So isn't it kind of a strange situation that it's like AI being blamed for the bias, but also a solution to check that there's no bias. So
and that's why it's so fascinating,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
And maybe the third thing that could come to my mind is about the transparency and that kind of trust on the technology and AI specifically.
It goes a bit about what Mika was saying. What is the data set that is being used to train this model?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how well you can describe it
Yeah.
to use it responsibly as well as ethically.
Yeah.
So that is the one big, not only question, not only challenge, but something that we need to figure out.
Have you seen those kind of cultural differences that I was kind of alluding to? Between Finns and Europeans, or Finns and non-Europeans?
Yeah, of course there can be some cultural differences, but I think that in a big picture when you are looking at it, so it is quite, you need to understand what there is behind it. So when talking about responsible and ethically, so when you know those ones, so of course it will then also reduce the biases and untrust on these ones. But of course the countries where is the technological adoption, for example, is at the high level. So then you've used to it. So you've used to different kind of chatbots. You've used to the different kind of automated processes. So why not AI in recruitment, for example?
Yeah.
And then one thing that I could look at is from the GDPR and these kind of privacy concerns and whether the countries, for example, in Europe, so as we were talking about the European law and legislation about the data privacy, so it might affect on that what kind of personal data you want to give in automated way and the process.
Yeah.
Somehow thinking about that where it will be stored and whether that is the person or whether that is some
and that is especially relevant for us working in HR, because either you have candidates and you have personal data of the candidates, or you have data of the employees when you're doing like people analysis. So it's always data related to people. We're not talking about finance, or you're not production data. It's data about people. And then you have GDPR is very strong of course in that field.
Yeah, and that's a really good thing. So I think that there needs to be more discussion and more about legislation is always, not always, but sometimes thought that it will, to somehow slow down the development. But a good discussion at a good level, so that is very important one. As this AI, for example, is spreading really fast.
Yeah.
And different channels. Yeah. So it is definitely something that it's time to think.
Yeah.
And stop to think also, to pause to think, so that how to use it responsibly.
And I kind of agree with you. You said that it's because I think, for example, in our experience, GDPR coming into the airline and travel industry was a very positive thing. A lot of the data was way too open and way too accessible.
Good point.
For people in travel industry before GDPR. Having been part of, both of us having been part of the GDPR project at Finnair, it was a big thing to do, but it was very much needed. Too much of personal data of me as a passenger was distributed and available to too many people before that. So it's not only that legislation is blocking innovation, but I think it's also a good thing. But of course, we need to find a balance.
Yeah, and I think from RecRight's perspective, the GDPR has not slowed down things a lot. And it is also kind of a good thing for a small company to have some kind of regulation to follow, because it might be kind of a wild west in some of the small companies if you don't have like a clear regulation that you need to do. So I don't feel that as a bad thing. Of course, it's causing all kinds of things, but not always a positive thing. But I think that overall it hasn't slowed things down anyway.
And we don't know yet, at least personally, I don't know yet enough about the EU AI legislation, but we have upcoming episodes of the podcast where we'll have people who are much more knowledgeable about these topics. So we'll dig deeper into the legislation in coming weeks.
Very interesting. And then about the culture things, I was thinking one third one also is that about the cultural things for the discussion culture. So whether that is like a direct or indirect. So I think that might have also some kind of impact on whether you are not capable, but where you have what is now the wording for that one, used to this kind of chatbots and other this kind of technology advanced processes. But those are, I think, but it's really difficult to say that, you know, from this country people are working like that and that. So this is now really like a somehow making some assumptions. And maybe looking at that kind of the culture things that might have an effect on how to use AI, not only in the recruitment but the technology itself.
There are big differences in countries and areas in the recruitment, like ways of recruiting as well.
That's true.
If we think of a kind of a European way, it's very like respecting candidates quite a lot, and not always a perfect candidate experience, of course, but still the candidate has quite big role in it. And if I compare it to my knowledge, which is quite limited, for example, how to recruit in US, it might be totally automated, and there's like a candidate doesn't matter that much before you actually need to like meet them and hire them. So of course the volumes are way bigger in at least some companies there, but I think that that's a big cultural difference as well, that in Europe the candidates has or they are respected differently than in some other areas.
Laura, you are consulting also nowadays HR professionals and decision makers. How would you advise them in their approach to AI within their, not only recruitment, but HR in general, you know?
Well, I have only one word for that one, or maybe two words. Be curious and have courage to explore. I think that is the way you need to start it. So you need to be interested in what's happening around technology itself. And there's so many, you know, places where you can gather information, not to start naming all the but just look from the internet. But anyway, so understand the technology itself, and then before taking, you know, technology just like it would be nice to have this kind of a HR-related technology tool, or taking AI to the recruitment. Please think about the use case. So what are the needs? What are the challenges? What is the process? So please describe that one first. And then think about how you can maybe enhance the technology and take all out the potential.
What would be an easy low-hanging fruit in terms of a process to start with? Where could you see true gains? What do you think?
Well, I think the recruitment. Recruitment is usually quite well described, and all the organizations, well, I should maybe say all the organizations are doing that in at some stage. So I think that is actually quite a concrete and good tool to start with the technology itself. And as the process need to be described, you need to know what you are doing, and then you need to look what would be the right place or right spot on the process where you could utilize the technology or AI specifically there. So I think that's something very concrete one, and not only doing it there in the HR role, but and not only with technology and IT guys and ladies, but really thinking about all the stakeholders that you have in the organization, the recruiters and recruiting managers and also the leadership team, so that what is the culture that we want to have there, what are the ways of working with, what are the ways of recruitment that we want to do, so really like knowing where you are putting the technology in. And not to start with the global company-wide process, maybe piloting a bit and testing a bit, and then using agile methods to scale up it. So I think that would be my maybe, was it 3 or 4 golden rules for that one.
And isn't recruitment kind of a low-hanging fruit because it has quite clear steps or the stages in the
Exactly.
process, so you can actually take only one step, and you don't even need to revolutionize the one step totally. You can put one small thing to the interview stage or screening stage, so that's quite clear way or easy way to start, I think.
Exactly. And yeah, it's not only the whole recruitment process, as you said. You can take one spot of it. For example, this video interviewing, and then analyzing there, and then going further with the onboard and training. And when talking about the training, so when you are at the HR, so please do not forget those people who are then going to work with the technology. Not only the training for the system, but also how it maybe change the ways of working, the thinking, decision making, and even the structures at some point.
You mentioned courage a bit earlier, courage to explore new things and courage to try new things, and that's always, we know, having worked in a kind of transformation processes, that's always one of the kind of things holding perhaps things back a bit. But have you had any good examples where you've been able to foster kind of a culture where people have been courageously experiencing things or exploring new things?
Yeah, definitely. Sad to say all the time this Finnair example, but I think that when you really take into account people and so that the projects or development projects themselves, they are not only in that subject matter function, what is like a leading it, but you are taking all the stakeholders out. Yeah. So, for example, when working with the development of the physical environment, so it's not only the physical environment, but you need to take into account how digitalization could maybe help, and what kind of rooms, what kind of places you need in the physical environment, and then again, what kind of leadership you need there. So I think that there are many examples in everyday life how you can interact. It can happen in a coffee automation, the machine, where you have the good discussion about it. So please, what I think is that use all those encounters that you have in daily lives, and I think that you can learn a lot from those.
Going a bit to the sidetrack, which is my personal skill
Mine
number
too.
one, but thinking of those like discussions at the coffee machine and stuff, and then on the other hand, remote work, hybrid organizations. Isn't that the risk still, even though we are like full remote, we have people all around Finland and in Sweden and stuff, but anyway, isn't that the small risk still that you are losing some pretty important thing when people are not at the coffee machines?
Then you need to find out what are those virtual coffee machines, whether that is in Slack, whether that is in any kind of video meetings and such. But maybe it's my age, maybe it's my experience. I would love to see also people in the physical coffee machine. I do understand that it's not always possible, but at least when you are building the team. Yeah. So whether you could at that stage have some really like physical encounters, get to know each other. It's much more nicer to work together when you have had a cup of coffee or cup of tea on the round of the table, and then no matter what that kind of would it that be the remote work or that same place, but somehow some kind of ground you need to build. That's my opinion.
And that is exactly the same opinion. Actually, my friend of mine, Kimmo Kääri and his co-writers wrote the book about connection.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the same what they're saying, that when you are in the phase of building a team, you need to build the connection. It's so much easier. It can be done virtually, but it's so much easier to build that connection between people in face-to-face meetings, coffee machines, whatever, afterwards, however you build it. Once you have that strong connection, it actually doesn't really matter that much where people are, as long as you nurture the connection once in a while. But that's actually a very good book to read about it. They just released it a month or two ago. And before going into a few kind of wrapping up questions, I need to follow up on that. What you said earlier is that I think personally, and what I hear from people now, especially after COVID, but personally already before COVID, coming from Google to Finnair, the biggest pain, and I hear that this is quite common for people going into corporations, is that a lot of the decision making and work gets done in meetings. And now that we had COVID, that same culture is kind of what I hear. We are a small growth company, it's very different for us, but what I hear from bigger companies is that people's days are now filled with back-to-back Teams meetings. They used to be filled with back-to-back face-to-face meetings before COVID, but we kind of digitalized that culture. And listening to people who work in large organizations, I don't hear that that's very healthy. You have large Teams meetings, a lot of end-to-end, kind of back-to-back Teams meetings. Would you have any cures for that? And especially thinking of the larger, older organizations that have a culture of, yes, we make decisions in large groups of people sitting around the table.
Mm. Yeah, and that's maybe the challenge is that the COVID, it came so dramatically, quickly.
Yeah.
So we couldn't change the process.
Yeah.
But we just, copied the process to another environment. And that's why it's so important to take those physical and digital environment as well as the leadership and the competencies to the same thing. But we didn't have time too much for that. So it surely is so that I think we talked a couple of years ago. I don't remember if I'm not sure whether you remember it, that we jumped to the Teams meeting mattress for the the morning and then jump out in the evening time and then start to make our work. I can still see that now we have meetings back to back, and what would be the cure for that one if I knew it? So I wouldn't maybe need to work anymore, but maybe just a couple of things would be that at least block some thinking time to your time schedule. So just for yourself.
Yeah.
And then if you can also do in the company so that there might be like a Monday or Friday or Wednesday somewhere in the morning or afternoon there is like a meeting free time and then whether you are doing then your own stuff, own work, or then you just have the good encounters. You can then have a phone call. You can have the one-on-ones or something like that. So I think that's the one thing. But there's not the magic wand, I think, which would now help on this. But maybe stopping and looking the process itself, whether that is the Teams or the Google World or whatever, the virtual life or then the office. So I wouldn't suggest to have, physical meetings at the office all the time, which is exactly the same as to have virtual meetings all the time. But you need to dig into the process itself and the days itself, why we are doing it, what we are aiming for that one, and then how could we change it.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of kind of productivity potential to be unlocked from there.
That's true.
I have a solution.
Hey.
AI. I think that most of the meetings with like a lot of people in it, you don't really need all of them.
No.
Why not even try to have a transcription from the meetings and then share it to the people that used to be invited to those meetings before?
Yeah.
And try if that could be the solution, that you actually get like a automated summary of the meeting, and then you can take the next steps from there. Because if there's like 6 people on the table, probably 2 or 3 are speaking, really speaking, everyone else are saying, yeah, agree, and then continuing with the emails.
Yes.
So that's like the technology is there.
Exactly.
We actually have one basically recording at the
use
moment.
Yeah.
So it's not that hard, but of course it's the process. It's again the traditional ways of working.
And in many companies, you really, what I hear, because I complain, of course, about this to all of my friends who spend their time sitting in Teams meetings. What I hear from many of them, if you're not senior management, you kind of need to have the senior management buy-in and even push to do this, because otherwise, many feel that this is my job. My job is to sit in this meeting where I say 2 words and then that's it.
And I dare to say that it starts from the boards.
I agree.
It starts
that starts from the top.
Yeah. So it starts from the top, and it's not like a hierarchical way to think. I don't mean that one, but it starts from there. The how to challenge, how to enhance, how to embrace that kind of culture.
Yeah.
Because if you don't challenge it, so people are sometimes I'm also lazy to why to then change something if that's the easy way how to do it. But of course, I'm also just very curious to all the time change and find the new ways. But you get the point.
Yeah, the junior marketing specialist doesn't have the mandate to not go to a meeting. But the senior person can say that, hey, we have 10 people meeting now. We only need these 3. And only for half an hour, not an hour.
Yeah. Culture starts also from there. So I think that it's really important to have a working with the example. So walk the talk that has been, there in 20 years, I think that we've been using that phrase. So where is it? So I think that's the very simple thing also, all the leaders to show the model, show the example of it.
Should we start wrapping things up? Yeah. As a final question, we ask this from everybody, and I'll ask this in the same method, but you can answer it in a bit wider as well, thinking of all HR professionals, not only recruiters. But to wrap things up, what do you think? Will recruiters be needed in 5 years' time?
It will evolve. So I mean that when we are talking about the recruiters, so what they are. So whether that is in a larger company, that might be the talent acquisition manager at the moment. And then in a scale-ups or startups, it's AI already maybe, but and of course the human behind there. Yeah. But anyway, because the resources are more limited. So who is the recruiter? So that's maybe the one thing. But I wouldn't see that they would, disappear. And what we have talked now all the time has been that the human touch and that human oversight. We need that to interrupting and looking after the technology. Technology can help. It can be a good helper and good coordinator, good trainee for us. But then when we are talking about the candidate encounters and that kind of employee and employer experience, I would be really, really sad to see that there wouldn't be the humans, whether that is a recruiter or manager or person itself, to be there and giving that human touch there. So my answer, very simple, that was a long answer, would be that we definitely need recruiters, we definitely need people in many coming years.
Yeah, I think we have had a great discussion. Thank you, Laura, for joining us.
Thank you. It has been my pleasure.
And thank you, Jussi. Thanks. And thank you all for listening. And remember to subscribe to this Recast in Spotify, Apple Podcast, or whatever podcast player you are using. And also good to follow RecRite in LinkedIn, where we will share all kinds of relevant content and also news about the upcoming episodes and stuff like that. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.